Do you believe in ghosts and monsters? You might be surprised to know that in Greenland, you're the odd one out if you don't believe in spirits and monsters. For thousands of years, the long Arctic nights and the beautiful but brutal and relentless nature has brought these creatures to life, fueling our cultural history, movies, music, and art with tales of mythical monsters. To understand the nature of the monsters, it's important to look at the history of the people that chose to reside here and how their lives shaped the creatures in our mythology.
Surviving in Greenland has always required immense willpower, stamina, and determination, and there has been enormous losses along the way. It's known that at least 6 different cultures lived in Greenland before the ancestors of today's Greenlanders made their arrival. All of them either left or perished over time due to the extreme conditions of life here. This makes it all the more impressive that one culture managed not only to populate the country through slow nomadic migration, but also become the ancestors of today's Greenlanders, the Thule culture. The Thule culture was in many respects a far superior culture compared to the earlier migrants. Most importantly, its people were extremely well adapted to the climate and the tough living conditions that resulted from it. They descended from a people who for hundreds of generations had lived a nomadic life in the area around the Bering Strait between what today is Siberia and Alaska. The family structure was simple but strictly defined. Men hunted, and women turned what the men caught into food, clothing, and anything else that was needed. Nothing from the hunt was wasted. Winters could be brutal and commonly resulted in several deaths every year. Given that nature played such a huge role and was such a decisive force in their life, it's no wonder that the Thule culture had to personify it and make it alive and tangible with an abundance of stories and myths. A landscape that to some might seem an icy and barren wasteland was to the Thule people teeming with creatures and spirits. Every single one of them had a special part to play or function to one another as well as to the people, and with it came a cornucopia of taboos which you had to respect in order not to create an imbalance. Taboos existed both for everyday and special occasions. The rules relating to the taboos were often complicated and difficult to carry out. They were followed most strictly on occasions such as birth and death, but most were associated with daily tasks such as hunting and sowing. When a hunter caught prey, he was expected to thank it for giving up its life to him. Unless they were observed, an imbalance would be created that might conjure much misfortune. The purpose of amulets and tattoos were to either repel or attract the spirits depending on how they were made and why. Evil spirits could be repelled by one kind of talisman and good spirits could be attracted by another. Overall, women tended to favor tattoos while men preferred amulets. This might be because women were regarded as being more closely connected to life and more vulnerable to the spirits due to their menstrual cycle and ability to create life. Myths and stories could help you understand taboos and teach you how to use amulets and spells. The creatures, spirits, and animals they featured showed you how and why you must respect the taboos, and they also served as a warning against certain types of behavior. Thus, they were not simply good entertainment during long, dark winter nights, but they were also the truth, and you had better take them seriously.
The beliefs that were spread throughout the Arctic have many things in common, but are not controlled by one single set of rules. There is no pre-Christian Greenlandic pantheon, and except from the sun and the moon and a very few others, none of them are really connected to each other like we would see in, for example, Nordic mythology. They each have their own meaning, and the stories and creatures themselves would often vary from region to region as well as from generation to generation. Each local storyteller would sprinkle the myths and monsters with a flavor of their own, depending on their subjective beliefs and life experiences. It is also important to consider who wrote the stories down. In the 1800s and 1900s, many Western explorers traveled the Pan-Arctic regions collecting and analyzing the myths and legends. Some of the explorers would insert flavors of their own or even omit certain things which were deemed too much to their sensitive audience. Luckily, many creatures have stood the test of time and have not only survived, but continue to thrive in the modern world. The Mother of the Sea, or Sessuma Alna in Greenland, is one of the most well-known mythical creatures. She appears in many different Inuit mythologies with a variety of names as the ruler of the sea animals. Her origin depends on the story, but it is commonly told that she was a young female who, for one tragic reason or another, is thrown into the ocean from a boat by her father or sometimes an angry hunter. As she desperately tries to cling to the side of the boat, the father cuts off her fingers joint by joint. When the pieces fall into the ocean, they turn into different mammals like the seal, the walrus, and the whale. The girl sinks to the bottom, and here she transforms into Sisumaalna, a protector who watches over the animals which live in her long hair. When the humans broke taboo rules, it would turn to filth and cling to her hair, thus angering her and preventing her from sending the animals to the surface, which meant the humans would be starving. An Nangekok, or shaman, would have to release his soul and make a spiritual journey down to her domain to try and appease her and make her release the animals once again. He would often meet a different set of trials before entering her home, where he would calm her down with the help of his helping spirits and then be able to comb her hair and make her happy again. Over time, she has transformed yet again, becoming a powerful symbol not only of global warming, but also of respecting and keeping our oceans clean and not overhunting and overfishing. The Qivittoq, or mountain wanderer, is known and found across all of Greenland in older as well as very recent times. They are created when someone leaves their community in shame, in anger, or in grief, not wanting to disturb their surroundings with whatever was ailing them. This person would walk far across the mountains or the ice sheet in order to sever contact with all other people and live either in solitude or together with other Qivittut. The survival of a settlement was dependent on the strength of the group, and for our ancestors, there was no wiggle room for an ailing individual, mental or physical. A person leaving a group was not uncommon, and trying to explain how they might actually survive out there in the barren wilderness created a magical being able to survive alone even under the most grueling of circumstances. Luckily, in our modern day and age, people with special needs are not expected to leave their home, and people are urged to seek out help. The Qivittoq could be either malevolent or benevolent, sometimes being a creature who would help lost travelers find their way back to their people, having a strong connection with nature and the animals. Other times, the Qivittut would chase and murder hunters as they were extremely protective and territorial of certain places. The tales of the supernatural Qivittoq have persisted into modern days. If people wanted to turn into a Qivittoq, they would bleed 3 drops of blood, probably symbolizing the Holy Trinity and turning their back on Christianity. In some cases, it has even involved local authorities, as people would report dangerous encounters with a Qivittoq who will try and chase them away from areas in the fjords. The Elhlaversinioq is a woman who lures lost travelers to her hut, sometimes appearing as a beautiful woman and sometimes as a grotesque old crone. She tries to make people laugh, and if they do, she will jump at them and gut them with her ulu, taking their liver and their other intestines. 1 or 2 big sculpins hangs from her groin, and they swing from side to side when she walks. When she tries to make people laugh, she will beat a drum with her ulu, and if there is even a hint of a smile at the corner of people's mouths, she will attack them and cut out their intestines through 1 large gash across their bellies. She has a big dish in which she puts the intestines when she has cut them out, and that dish comes jumping into the room when she summons it. Her house lies west of the moon, and if an Nangekok got lost on their way to the moon on their spirit journey, they would risk being caught by her. Should they be so unlucky, and if they smiled and got their guts cut out, the only way to survive was to quickly eat the guts again before she would have a chance to cook them. She was a scary reminder to watch out whenever you were traveling in the wild, and some say that her house is still seen from time to time, making a false promise of rest to a weary traveler. The Ikusik is a corpse, either man or woman, that crawls along on its elbows, as the rest of the arms are missing. Still, it can move at great speed and catch a grown person trying to run from it. It hunts and eats humans alive, and they usually come into the undead life if someone has desecrated their grave or if they died with great anger and regret. It has many different names, and stories about this undead creature can be found in both big and small cities. In modern times, it has become part of several urban Greenlandic legends, showing up in stories about tunnels and summer camps, urging youth to be vigilant about their surroundings after dark. The Dubilek is a creature that we have come to know due to reverse association, as the carved bone figurines are found and sold all over Greenland. To start at the actual beginning, a Dubilek was made up of parts from animals and people and was used to take revenge. It could look very different depending on the parts from which it was made, and it could have many different abilities. To make a Dubilek, you gathered different parts of animals and people, and the parts were then placed by a river and covered with moss, after which spells were set over them. As soon as the Dubilek started to come alive, it had to suckle its maker's genitals, or the breast of a female, so it could grow and become big and dangerous. Once it was big enough, its maker would return it to the river and tell it who it would attack. However, a skilled Engekok could protect themselves against the Dubilek and send it back to its original creator, and if a Dubilek was sent back or sent with an unjust purpose like jealousy, it would turn on its maker and kill them instead. So think twice before you take revenge. When explorers first started coming to Greenland, they heard about the terrifying spirit avengers and were intrigued to find out more about them. The locals made a visual representation by carving out the creatures of bone and wood, and the explorers were eager to purchase the carvings, which led to an actual production of the first Greenlandic merchandise. These are, however, not dangerous and can instead be seen as protectors of a house and are a welcome gift to any household.
Just like the people of Greenland, the stories and the creatures inhabiting them have changed over time, yet their historical value can be found in our culture, showing the true meaning of surviving in the Arctic.
Who knows what may be found in the heart of the deepest fjords where the world of mythology is still alive and thriving.